Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Yes, sir, Bob. Greetings. Ooh, a little hot here. Either bring the feed up or take me down. We're still mixing the mix minus here, folks. It's never the same pre-show as it... There we go. There we go. Greetings, my friends, and welcome. Great to have you here as we continue our busy broadcast week from a secure, secret, safe location here on the left coast. Telephone number, if you want to be on the program, 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushvo@eibnet.us. So let's see. I just got the audio soundbite roster. There's one about me. There's two about me. Paul Krugman writes that I'm a terrible person today in the New York Times because of the lies that they're reporting I said about the hurricane not being a threat. I mean, this is the New York Times and the Washington Post are both lying. I mean, there's no other way. There's no word. They're not misspeaking. It's not that they have it wrong. There's no way they could not know they are publishing lies, and they are continuing to do so. In fact, Krugman said, well, it just means that Limbaugh's a terrible person, but that's nothing new. We already knew that. The problem is he's not an outlier. There are a lot of people who think like Limbaugh thinks. Rush Limbaugh, terrible person. Here's a guy who looks like a ferret calling me a terrible person who's not been right on anything economically, and that's his expertise. Just amazing. And Mrs. Clinton, you know, the book, the title, the cover of her book, you don't need to know any more. The top half of what happened, the bottom half, Hillary Rodham Clinton. That's what happened. She tried. She got kicked out, and she still can't get over it. And funny things are happening on her book signing tour. There also was a telethon. A bunch of leftist celebrities got together for a telethon to raise money for the hurricane relief efforts. And it quickly turned into the Wellstone Memorial Jr. It became nothing more than a leftist rant. In fact, Stevie Wonder led it off. You know, I've always told you climate change, if people that believe it, it's a religion. As Stevie Wonder was talking about climate change, they had a church choir and an organ with people decked out in robes chanting things behind him while he was singing or what. And he was eulogizing or talking about climate change. I mean, literally illustrating to these people that it's religious. Matt Lauer was interviewing somebody and was just asking, he was part of the telethon, and he was lying about the fact that he said, this is the strongest hurricane, this is the most powerful hurricane on record that has ever hit Florida, the United States. I mean, it's number 7. It's not even close. It's not even close to the biggest and dangerous, most damaging hurricane. They're just out there lying through their teeth about this. And then anybody that challenges them is a terrible person. But we knew that already. Anyway, let's see what else happened on the audio. Just got this. Steny Hoyer quotes Rush Limbaugh on House floor. Oh, that's about immigration. Oh, and get this. You know, because of the nature of things, we haven't focused a lot on Washington politics this week. But today, we're not going to be able to avoid it. Try this headline. White House, don't be silly. Trump has always supported amnesty. How many of you people think that Trump has always... What this headline's based on is a statement made by Sarah Huckabee Sanders. It's from the Daily Caller. President Trump's request that Congress protect legal immigrants is not a change of heart, but something Trump has always supported, according to Sarah Sanders. Trump presented a hardline immigration policy on the campaign trail and said during an August campaign speech, 2016, there will be no amnesty. When asked during Tuesday's White House press briefing about Trump's support of amnesty, Sanders replied, I think the president has spoken out very clearly that he wants us to make this decision based on a variety of factors. But the number one thing is that he wants responsible immigration reform, and part of that is including that amnesty in the process. She went on to say that Trump has always wanted responsible immigration reform. Now, to the DACA aspect of it here. But, I mean, clearly, don't be silly, Trump's always supported amnesty. No, that's not... Trump has not been clear that Trump has supported amnesty. There's also a story today we're going to dig deep into, and it's about tax cuts and tax reform. And the story is that Trump is itching to do it. Big middle-class tax cut, but the rich are going to face a tax increase. That's also not what was said during the campaign. So anyway, there's a lot to go through here and ferret out. And we've got the entire program here to do it. Nancy Pelosi, they're coming for the Dreamers like they came for the Japanese in World War II. Okay, so I'm just sizing things up here as I want to mix things together. I want to go back. I want to start here with this telethon, the hurricane telethon. Have you noticed, and I mentioned this yesterday, you had these people doing this telethon, but none of them are actually on the front lines helping out. They're asking other people to send money, and while they're asking other people to send money, they are berating Donald Trump and everybody that voted for him. I mean, they are engaged in deeply personal insults to Trump and people who voted for him while asking other people. You don't see these people out there. You don't see Black Lives Matter. You don't see the Antifa people. You don't see any of them helping on site. You don't see them. Wow, has that been happening all week as I hit that table? Folks, I am sorry. I just now heard. I'm going to have to try to break this habit of pounding the desk. I had no idea that it was that. I'm hearing all kinds of. So I'll do my best not to use my hands as I gesticulate wildly here, as I speak emphatically. But you don't see these people out there passing things out. You don't see them helping people. They're not on site. Instead, they're here doing a telethon. And there have been remarkably few stories about the smoothness, about the efficiency and the timeliness and the competence of the relief efforts. And why haven't you seen those stories? You haven't seen those stories because those stories to be written would have to credit the government. And who is seen as running the government today? The Trumpster. And they don't want to give Trump credit. They don't want to give Republicans credit. So it's a story pretty much ignored until this telethon comes along, and then the media focuses right. In fact, the media participating in it. Matt Lauer. I'm lying to people watching this thing, all to make the case for climate change. Why do they have to lie? If climate change is as real as they believe, why do they have to lie? Why do they have to tell people Hurricane Irma is the strongest and the most dangerous and the most damaging hurricane that's ever hit when it's number 7? And that's among the hurricanes we know. Hurricanes have been hitting various land masses for billions and billions and billions of years. And we only have known about them, been able to record them for the last, 150, 200 years max. So we don't even know that what we know now is right. It's only correct within a current sphere of timeline. It doesn't matter. They're out there lying through the most dangerous storm, the most costly storm, the most deadly storm ever to hit. I don't know if he said Florida or the United States, but if either one, he's wrong. And he's a journalist. He's on the Today Show. He's on NBC. He is presented to people as an authoritative, credible source. He's lying through his teeth. The thing I don't know is, does he know that he's wrong? And that's the question about people like Lauer, because they're part of the groupthink. They're part of the consensus, and they just line up, and whatever is to be said, they say it. And since these people are routinely not curious about what they believe, and they're not eager to confirm what they believe, they don't think they have to. You don't know whether he believes it or not. You don't know whether he knows what's true or not. And yet NBC puts him out there as one of their highest-ranking source authorities. But I think there's one of the reasons that one of the possible reasons that the Trump team is performing so well, these hurricane disaster issues, is besides competence, which this team has in abundance, and besides compassion, which they have in abundance. You know what Donald Trump isn't doing? That Obama would be doing? Or any other Democrat? Trump is not out there blaming anybody. He's not trying to push a political advantage here. Well, I take that back. He actually is, but he's doing it very strategically and very smartly. He is, of course, adding to his political reputation by doing a good job. But my point is, he's not out there blaming local officials. He's not blaming Obama. He's not blaming anybody. He's not taking the occasion of this disaster to make himself look better at the expense of others. He's not trying to score points on phony politicized science. He is coordinating rescues and cleanup. He is not messaging for future fundraising. He is performing for future fundraising. And there's a big difference. Actually doing, taking action, accomplishing things versus simply PR packaging, words, messaging, what have you. In other words, the sole focus of the Trump administration seems to be the job at hand. And the drive-bys are unable to write serious stories about the administration or the Trump administration's efforts not succeeding, because if they were, the stories would be out there. Most of the stories that I've seen really are about how we dodged the bullet. Most of the stories are, it wasn't as bad as was forecast. Now, in those stories, they never mention, and Rush Limbaugh advised you that might be the case. Now, over here, Rush Limbaugh is a terrible person. But over here, they're telling you what I told you would be the case before it happened. But I'm a terrible person, and they're telling you, it's not as bad. Why isn't it as bad? They're trying to figure out why it's not as bad as they wanted. Don't doubt me on this. Of course, that's a horrible thing to say. Well, folks, I can see the disappointment. I mean, remember, who was it? Rahm Emanuel. A crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And these kinds of things are exactly what the left uses to advance their agenda, and they're not able to here. So they're trying to figure out why it wasn't as strong as it was. And then, Cuba. Cuba, it ran into Cuba, it weakened a little bit. And the ocean temperature, seawater temperature, weren't quite as high as we thought. And it took a little westerly track that wasn't expected. 20 more miles, somebody actually said, 20 more miles and there would have been another $500 million in damage. As though, damn it, instead of dodged a bullet, power is slowly starting to return. And a vision of normalcy is now possible. It's distant still for a lot of people, but it is possible. Here is the Daily Caller take on the hurricane telethon, getting political right at the start. Stevie Wonder started the show by saying anyone who believes there's no such thing as global warming must be blind. Stevie Wonder said that anyone saying there's no such thing as global warming must be blind or unintelligent. There are others who want to jail people who don't believe in climate change. And I'm not talking about brain-dead celebrities. There are people in the pundit journalist community advancing, and the professorial, the academic community, in academe, as they say, who are pushing this notion that climate denial is so serious that its practitioners should be jailed or severely punished. Celebrities participating in the hand-in-hand fundraiser included Stevie Wonder, Justin Timberlake, Oprah Winfrey, George Clooney, Julia Roberts, Dennis Quaid, Adam Sandler, Terry Crews, Leonardo DiCaprio, Gwen Stefani, Bryan Cranston, Beyonce, and many more. Combined IQ 99. And because they're wondering, how did it get political? You just hear the names? Stevie Wonder wasn't the only participant who got political during the telethon. Beyonce contributed a video that started during a time when it's impossible to watch the news without seeing violence or racism. Well, wait a minute, that's bad journalism. I don't know what that's not. I guess they're quoting her video, but it doesn't say so there. Anyway, it's this, and it's this story that mentions Matt Lauer fundraising and helping get donations, talking about the hurricane being the absolute worst that we've ever had. And then there's this from the UK Sunday Times. Two white Red Cross struggle to help. The head of the British Red Cross has admitted the charity struggled with the fire that they had over there, the Grenfell Tower, because its workforce is too white. What would that have to do with anything? The British Red Cross struggled because its workforce is too white. Did that mean they didn't get enough donations? Now, I compared this to the Wellstone Memorial. Remember, they politicized that. Paul Wellstone, Senator Minnesota, died in a plane crash. And they had a memorial for Wellstone, and then a lot of Republican senators went to it. It was in Minnesota. And the Republican senators who were friends of Wellstone got booed. When they walked in, they were forced to leave the memorial because the crowd was bordering on being violent. It was vicious. And they turned the memorial / it was a quasi-funeral service for Paul Wellstone into a full-fledged political rally that was negative and it was mean-spirited, and they ended up losing seats in the 2002 midterms because of that. And this is what this thing was, Les. These people don't know it, but they are doing incredible damage to the Democrat Party, and I have evidence coming up. A quick timeout now. We'll be back. Don't go away. Trust me, all of this is backfiring on the Democrats, and they don't know it yet. And it, just like it did back in 2002 with the Wellstone Memorial. Here is audio. Here is Stevie Wonder last night opening this telethon for hurricane relief.
We've come together today to love on the people that have been devastated by the hurricanes. When love goes into action, it preferences no color of skin, no ethnicity, no religious beliefs, no sexual preferences.
So why mention it?
And no political persuasions.
Except.
It just loves. Right. As we should begin to love and value our planet. And anyone who believes that there is no such thing as global warming must be blind or unintelligent. Wow. Lord, please save us all.
I guess that wasn't love, because when love goes into action, it preferences no color of skin, no ethnicity, no religious belief, no sexual preferences, no political persuasions, except you don't believe in climate change, you're either unintelligent or you must be blind. Here is Beyonce.
During a time where it's impossible to watch the news without seeing violence or racism in this country, just when you think it couldn't possibly get worse, natural disasters take precious life, do massive damage, and forever change lives. The effects of climate change are playing out around the world every day. Irma alone has left a trail of death and destruction from the Caribbean to Florida to southern United States.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, from the last time there was a concert for hurricane relief, 2005, Kanye West.
We already realize a lot of the people that could help are at war right now, fighting another way, and they've given them permission to go down and shoot us. George Bush doesn't care about black people.
That's the hurricane relief from 2005. Not much change, the one they did last night. Back in a second. So back in 2002, the Democrats did the Wellstone Memorial, and you could tell that they believed this was after 9/11, remember, and they had ceased their unity with George W. Bush. They were attacking Bush for his lack of timely response in launching the attack in Afghanistan. And they were convinced that the whole country agreed with them. And the arrogance and the condescension was on display. It was the most incredible things that I've ever seen in modern American politics. And since then, the Democrats have repeated. They're doing it now with this telethon last night. And they've been doing it ever since Trump actually became the Republican nominee, and of course, in essence, since he won the election, and they've been hysterically unhinged ever since then, and they keep piling on, and they keep trying to outdo themselves, and they're under the belief that they can talk people out of supporting Trump, and they're firing everything they've got at it. And last night's hurricane telethon was just the latest stab at it. There is a story today in the Politico. Teflon Don confounds Democrats. Democrats have attacked the president every which way, but polling and focus groups show that none of it is working. In addition, Rasmussen has just come out with a poll. I printed it out here. And guess what? A majority of most voters, not Trump supporters, they're in this, but this is a sample of most voters welcome Trump's outreach to congressional Democrats. Now, the conventional wisdom is that Trump's hurting himself, that Trump's base, who are they? If you believe the media, Trump's base, a bunch of Neanderthal, white supremacist right-wingers, and that they hate and they despise and they're dumb and they're stupid and they're knuckle draggers, and that they will defend Trump no matter what he does. And they are a vast majority of the American population, except they can't explain how that group of people elected Trump. But that's what they tell themselves. They lie to themselves about their opponents. They lie to themselves about themselves and their own supporters. Despite their failure to advance Trump's agenda, congressional Republicans aren't happy about his outreach to Democrats. Paul Ryan, in fact, it has been learned that Ryan has told people at private fundraisers and private gatherings, and this is not a surprise, folks. At least it didn't surprise me when I ran into it, that Paul Ryan has said that there is no chance for a border wall. It's never going to happen. And the Republicans are never going to help Trump do this. And, of course, these private dinners are where fundraisers are taking place, where donors are. And Ryan was assuring them, well, not a surprise to us. We know that the Republican Party doesn't want to help Trump advance his agenda. But the Democrats, Chuck and Nancy, after their successful powwow with Trump on the debt ceiling, and Trump loved it because something got done. Trump's a doer. He's not an ideologue. He liked getting something done. The Republicans are not helping him get anything done. So now we went to work with the Democrats, and Rasmussen's gone out and polled it, and they have found out 66% of likely U.S. voters say it is good for the country if Trump works with congressional Democrats to advance his agenda. Just 13% think that the bipartisan cooperation, i.e. Trump working with Democrats, is bad. 21% are undecided. Now, likely voters that's not a precise sample. You really want registered voters. Likely voters doesn't include people that definitely do vote. And so what they think doesn't matter as much if they're only likely to vote. But you have a pool of registered voters, likely voters, more guaranteed, than that is a better sample. And only 19% here believe the president should continue to rely on congressional Republicans to pass his agenda. This has always been, in my mind, has always been the danger. Trump, because he's not an ideologue, meaning he does a lot of things that people like me and conservatives applaud, but he's not one of us. He's a doer. He will work with people to help get things done. He knows what got him elected. He knows the wall. He knows repealing and replacing Obamacare tax. He knows that stuff. But if he's working with people who aren't going to help him get it done, what good are they to him? And that's who the Republicans are. So here come Chuck and Nancy. Chuck and Nancy are willing to help Trump get things done. And Chuck and Nancy are wily. Chuck and Nancy also know that Trump's not an ideologue. And they can see that the Republicans don't want to help Trump because the Republicans are scared to death of being tied to any success that Trump would have. I know that sounds strange, but don't doubt me. So Chuck and Nancy come along. Well, mainly Chuck, because I don't think Nancy knows what day it is now. But Chuck brings her along, because she's a leader of the House Democrats. But I don't think Nancy, she's okay. But Chuck brings her along, and Chuck looks at the Republicans. He says, look, these people are hell-bent on making sure this guy doesn't get anything done. But we know he wants to get things done. We'll help him get things done, and we'll help get things done that we want. Because Trump wants things to get done. And as long as we approach it right, and now, ergo, we're talking about amnesty for the Dreamers and DACA. And now we got the White House saying, "Oh, don't be silly here. Trump's always supported amnesty." No, not for everybody. The amnesty that he's talked about has been for a select few, DACA, Dreamers, kids, this kind of thing. But the anger, I'll tell you what, when this Rasmussen survey, we'll give it some weight. I mean, it's as good as any polling unit out there. None of them really have a firm foundation of authoritative accuracy going for them right now. So we'll deal with this. 66% of the American people are fine with Trump reaching out to Democrats. One of the factors here is that Trump really does appear to be Teflon. I mean, no matter what, it just doesn't stick to him. That's what the Democrats said about Reagan, and they hated Reagan for that. No matter what he did, nothing stuck to him. It looks like Trump is practically the same. And why would that be? Well, you can't forget the people that voted for Trump. And I don't mean you personally, talking generically, the people who continually in their minds or in the way they speak make fun of the people that voted for Trump. If you think that Trump's voters are a bunch of hayseed know-nothings who are steeped deep in racism and bigotry and all of the usual cliches that the Democrats throw out, you're underestimating dramatically who they are. They are people who pay attention, and they are fed up with the way Washington has not been functioning. Or has been, either way. And Trump represents a brand new, fresh start by somebody that's not been tainted by membership in the swamp. And as such, there is there are people in this country who truly believe that we are on the verge of losing the country as founded. That's laughed at, mocked, joked about. But these people that elected Trump believe it. And so they are personally invested in Trump, and they believe that Trump is going to do things that will make things better, and whoever he has to work with to get them done, according to Rasmussen, that's what they'll support. The Republicans are harming themselves in ways here that I don't even think they are aware of, and the Democrats are too. With these hurricane telethons and this never-ending assault on Trump. This political story, which I'm going to get back to in a jiffy, is amazing. It details everything they've thrown at Trump and how none of it is working. Every Democrat thing that's always worked to destroy Republican opponents in the past, none of it is working, which you need to ask, well, why? And, of course, there is an answer, and I, El Rushbo, have the answer. We'll get to that and much more. After we take a brief time out, we'll start working your phone calls into the mix. Don't go away, folks. We're coming right back. On the cutting edge of societal evolution, Rush Limbaugh serving humanity simply by showing up. We start on the phones in Jacksonville, Florida. Hey, Peter, great to have you, sir. How are you?
Thank you, Rush. Infinite dittos.
I appreciate that.
I'd like to address Hollywood and the music industry. You insult me, you offend me, you mock me, you lie to me, and then you want me to go out and buy your movies, go to your movies, rent your movies, buy your albums. No, not anymore. I've stopped going to movies about a year ago. I will not darken the door of a theater again. I'm fed up with these people. They're idiots, and I'm done with them. I'm finished with them. They can all go to where.
You may not be the only one. I mean, summertime Hollywood box office been in the tank. It's been across the board. I don't think has there been one movie that did okay while blockbuster okay while the others. That Wonder Woman was about it, right? The only one that had any kind of box office. Stephen King movie's doing okay. He's a cult figure, though. But basically, Hollywood in the summertime it's dangerously bad, and they're concerned about it. So you're probably not alone.
Well, there are a lot of movies that I would love to go see, but I'm not going to give them my hard-earned money and then let them insult me and belittle me. I'm done with them.
But they've always been doing this, Peter. What's new about what? I mean, this is nothing new. Hollywood featuring a bunch of leftists that are anti-America, anti-conservative, anti-Republican. What is it about now that's got you bugged?
Well, it's been bugging me for years, but it just dawned on me not too long ago that why am I going to see these movies? These people are making $48 million to make a movie, then they get residuals also from the movie, and they insult me and want me to go give them more money? I'm not doing it anymore. No, I'm done.
Well, I appreciate the call. I know how he feels. This is not anything recent, but when I was younger and more naive, I can remember learning, liking a particular actor, actress, shows or movies they were in, and then learning who they really are and what they really think and maybe how dumb they are. And it just blew up everything. I had no desire anymore. It's like investing in an athlete who you think is a great guy and a hero, and you find out it's a reprobate. It just takes the wind out of your sails. I know what he's talking about. But there is a blacklist in Hollywood, and these people, this is no excuse, but they have to say these things, or they have to think this way to work. And anybody that tries to tell you differently is trying to smooth it over, because it really is true. I've heard it from enough people. I know it. It really is true. There's a blacklist, and there is an accepted way or a required. Hey, look, it's no different than what's happening to people like me in this outside of groupthink and consensus on climate change. You have to think this way. If you don't, and you're not going to get hired. So one of the ways these actors, and I don't doubt that it's not genuine, but I also don't know how deeply knowledgeable they are about these things. I think it's pure emotional. But saying things in public, going on TV, it's how they affirm their qualification and status politically with the people who hire and decide to pay people a lot of money. It is, everything has been politicized now. And Hollywood actually for a long time. Chuck in Portland, it's great to have you, sir. How are you doing?
Hey, Rush, glad to be on your show this morning. And
great to have you here. I appreciate your call.
Yeah, well, I'm a meteorologist. I've been so for over 30 years. I listen to all of your broadcasting about the hurricanes. And you're spot on, my man. Just keep up the good work. Nobody could be saying it better than you're saying it right now. These people in Hollywood are absolutely bonkers. They're nuts. They don't know what they're talking about. Even the ones in academia are giving half-truths about how these hurricanes really behave and hyping climate change, because that's where the universities make their money off this. Michael Mann is one of them, the way he talked about Harvey. But think of a hurricane, Rush. They talk about, and you've talked about it on your show, you talk about, the warm ocean water, it needs fuel. That's the fuel that gets these storms going. But there's several other components to this, Rush, and needing fuel or the warm water is only one. Think of a hurricane as a car engine, to put it in simpler terms. The car needs fuel to run, but it also needs cylinders, a radiator, and an engine size, which you could think of as the dynamic stability of the storm. In other words, the developing thunderstorms that occur, and then the destruction of those storms and redevelopment as the storm moves along. If any one of those components doesn't operate correctly, the storm cannot rev up to Cat 5 no matter how warm the water gets. And you could think of the transmission as being the wind shear associated with these storms.
Oh, now that's... I was gonna mention wind shear to you, because there's another hurricane out there. This is Hurricane Jose. And he's Hurricane Jose. You look at the computer models, Hurricane Jose is doing circles. And the models are not sure where it's going to end up. And so I read today that interests along the northeastern coast should be especially prepared. Make sure you have waters and batteries and... So come on! The thing is hundreds of miles away, and there's not a single model now that has it hitting land.
Well, that's correct, Rush, and you're also correct.
The shear is what I wanted to talk to you about. Because people are asking me, well, how come Irma was what it was in this Jose thing? It was the same place. Why is it not going where Irma did? I said, shear is ripping the tops off of this hurricane. Would you explain to people what that means?
Well, the wind shear is the change of wind with height as you go up into the atmosphere. These hurricanes need very little wind, and they don't. If you get too much wind at high levels, the storm tops cannot develop to the altitudes that they do to get the Cat 5 going. In other words, the cylinders aren't firing right. The radiator has a leak. And,
you're not going to have. You're not going to have enough.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether there's enough warm water or not. If the rest of the components don't all come together, you're not going to rev that thing up to Cat 5. And let me tell you something else about these hurricanes, Rush. When they develop way out in the central Atlantic like Irma did and rev themselves up to Cat 5, the dynamic stability tends to have a life to it. These are heat engines, and they tend to become disorganized the longer you go through time. The most deadly storms that we experience here in the mainland are ones that actually form closer in. And the most deadly on record, which people don't really talk about today, it's 50-some years old, was Hurricane Camille in 1969 in August 7th.
It was. Yeah, it was deadly. Look, I'm running out of time. I appreciate the call, but being substantiated here by a lifelong career meteorologist, that counts for much more than Paul Krugman or Matt Lauer or Stevie Wonder. But there is a hurricane out in the Atlantic. It's being ripped to shreds by shear. The shear over Irma was practically non-existent. And they can't tell you why, and they can't move it. It's just the way the atmosphere is affecting this particular hurricane. I got to take a break. I'm a little long. Back after this. Don't go away. We went back to the Grooveyard of Forgotten Soundbites, the archives, and we yanked some of the soundbites from the Wellstone Memorial back in 2002, 15 years ago. And for those of you new to the program, we might delve into some of those just to help explain what this hurricane telethon really was an offshoot of. Stand by, coming right back. I keep trying to ignore Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton bores me. But it doesn't matter because she still continues to make news that sucks me back in. And my professional requirements necessitate me mentioning some of this is actually kind of funny. But it's also proof of a couple claims that I have been making about Mrs. Clinton for many, many moons. Anyway, greetings, welcome back. Great to have you, Rush Limbaugh, here in Los Angeles in a secure, confined, and out-of-the-way location that would not be found by even the NSA. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program, and the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. No, I have not forgotten. I'm going to go back to this political story because this is key, and I'm going to get some of these sound bites from the Wellstone Memorial because they dovetail great. Oh, we found out $44 million. Now, let's put this in perspective. These Hollywood leftists and their telethon last night aired El Freebo on 4 networks. Okay, 4 networks, however long the thing was, raised $44 million. There were pledges for $44 million. Many of those might have come from leftists who will not pay in the end. However, we'll go with the number that's what they report. $44 million. A single white, I have to point this out, football player with a tweet and a website raised $31 million. And that would be J.J. Watt of the Houston Texans, whose original goal was $200,000. And it just kept growing, and it just kept growing. And J.J. Watt didn't have a telethon. And J.J. Watt was not out there politicizing anything. J.J. Watt was on site helping pass out some of the donated materials. He was actually there meeting people, putting boxes of goods into their cars, and actually hugging them, not appearing from afar and asking other people to do what he wanted done. One guy with one tweet and a website, 31 million, a bunch of Hollywood celebrities, however long the telethon was, at least an hour. Did you watch it? You watched it? I'm sitting here with people who watched the thing. Oh, you had to air it on your network. So you were it was work. You were a prisoner. You were a broadcast prisoner of this thing. So it was 1 hour. Well, wait a minute, you have a radio? It was on radio too? I didn't know that. radio plus television, 4 networks plus whatever the radio networks were. 44. It's not chump change, don't misunderstand. But with that much publicity and that much firepower, a bunch of accredited liberal... I'm sorry, there goes that... I'm sorry. That's got to be irritating you like crazy. If I can hear it, I know it is. Anyway, it's great to have you. The telephone number is 800-282-2882. Mrs. Clinton, in her book, and again, I just want to say, have you seen the book? Look at the cover. On the top half, Hillary Clinton. On the bottom half, what is it? What went wrong? What happened? You don't even need to read the book. The cover explains it. Hillary Rodham Clinton, what happened? She happened. You don't need to read it. That's why there are people like me who will tiptoe through this thing and find humorous anecdotes like this. Now, I've always mentioned Hillary Clinton, one of the problems is she does not connect with people. And it's not something you can practice doing. It's your person. Trump connects with people. And what I mean by this, when Trump does a rally, the people in that arena, wherever it is, have a personal connection. They believe Donald Trump is them. They believe Trump is speaking just to them. They don't think that Trump is condescending. They don't think Trump believes he's better than anybody else. It's akin to the Q factor on with the particular movie stars and television personalities. There's a Q factor. It basically measures things that we call connection, and you either have it or you don't. And it's like if you can't throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, nobody can teach you to do it. If you're not likable, nobody can coach you to likability. In the political realm or in the celebrity realm, you either are or you aren't. And a lot of factors: believability, trust, genuineness. There's a whole lot of things, and of course your physical appearance. But that's not as in terms of connection. Physical appearance is not nearly as necessary as other characteristics or personality traits. Mrs. Clinton, even throwing the physical out, does not have the ingredients necessary to connect with people. And it's because it's obvious that she doesn't want to. And she admits this, knowingly or unknowingly, in her book. For example, she recounts a moment when a mother dragged her daughter by the arm to apologize to the former Secretary of State for not voting. So Hillary was doing a personal appearance somewhere, and a woman brought her daughter to apologize to Hillary for not voting. Now, that mother is an odd kook ball anyway, but it happened. You throw Hillary into this mix, and you have all the ingredients necessary for mass therapy. So a woman upset that Hillary lost when she found out her daughter didn't vote for her, grabbed her daughter and dragged her to a Hillary appearance. And then when they get up to the line, this mother tells Hillary that her daughter didn't vote for her and demands that she apologize to Hillary. Hillary notes that the girl had her head bowed in contrition. But instead of feeling sorry for this girl being humiliated, Clinton says she wanted to pile on. I wanted to stare right in that little girl's eyes and say, you didn't vote? How could you not vote? You abdicated your responsibility as a citizen in the worst possible time, and you want me to make you feel better? She actually writes that. Then she says, of course I didn't say that. Hillary, the fact that you admit that was your reaction, if I'm in the same circumstance, I would never run for office, so it wouldn't be that. But if one of you thought that your kids had done something that was not favorably insulting to me, and you knew I was going to be somewhere, and you dragged your kid to appearance to meet me to apologize, I would. There was no way that I would see anybody in that circumstance with contempt. And it would never occur to me to pile on. and start ragging on that person that supposedly had done something that was not helpful to me. Don't worry about it. Come on. I would have, anything, chided the parent in a very soft, unobtrusive way. But the fact that Clinton admits that this is the reaction she had is exactly what I'm talking about. This is a feeling of entitlement. I'll guarantee you that Hillary Clinton, in her heart of hearts, thinks having to run for election is beneath her. Now, you may think, Rush, no, she can't. I'm telling you, folks, that may be a bit of an exaggeration, but her attitude is that she shouldn't have to stoop to such mundane things. She is so qualified, so entitled, so deserving that she should just be made president by acclamation. Why didn't she campaign in all these states? Only part of it was the fact that she ran the risk of falling on her flat face every day because of the seizure she was having. The other part of it is she didn't think she had to. She thought those people in those states were automatically going to vote for her because she was Hillary Clinton. Well, Donald Trump, no way does Trump ever take anything like that for granted, and no other politician worth their salt does either. And then there's another story. Hillary Clinton's book signing was as insufferable as you'd expect. And this is in the New York Post. Now, again, evidence here that she just doesn't connect with people. She has no bond. There's no personal investment. The people that are bonded or connected to Hillary are feminists who wanted her to win because of some deep meaning in there being a female president. But Hillary, personally, there isn't any connection. You can't get close enough to her. She doesn't want you to know anything. You can't have that kind of bond. And in politics, that's a recipe for disaster and failure. And she is, replete with these kinds of failures on the biggest stages politics has to offer. She's incapable of comfortable communication with a crowd of supporters. In a crowd of supporters, she still feels stiff and wooden and like she would rather not be there. Have you ever seen tape of Hillary delivering one of those 20-minute speeches at Goldman Sachs for which she was paid $250,000? I saw one. And I'm thinking, how do the people that write the check not demand the money back? It was boring. It was sophistic. It was banal. Sorry. It was nothing. There's no way Hillary met any of the expectations. Of course, just showing up and speaking for 20 minutes was a pro forma thing. The real thing was to give her the money. It was an investment in her presidency for policy favors later on. She had to show up and say something in order to make it look legit. So Hillary had a book signing. The story of this story. She had a book signing. Her arrival time was 11 a.m. And there were, this we talked about yesterday, big line, hundreds. Hundreds of people. The line was so big, there were a couple people standing outside the store to get in. That's how big it was. There were a lot more waiting, 80-degree heat. Everybody there had to have their bag checked because, Hillary's a formerly very important person, so security threats are taken very seriously. People were not allowed to have food or water in their bags. But it says here that most of the people in line retained their excitement. If they couldn't have Hillary as president, getting to see her sign their book was the next best thing. 30 minutes went by. Still, she didn't show. It's an 11 o'clock book signing. Then 40 minutes went by, and she didn't show. And it wasn't as though you could read her book while you were waiting, because you wouldn't get your copy until you approached the dais where Hillary would then generically sign it. She was not even looking at people. They just walked by. She'd sign the book, look up and smile in a very plastic way. And the line kept moving. You weren't allowed to speak to her. Finally, before noon, she was almost an hour late. She shows up, and the crowd starts shouting, "Hillary, Hillary, Hillary!" And she absorbs the adulation. She gives that royal wave that she's patented. She thinks she's Princess Di. And so She didn't say a word. She didn't apologize for being late. She didn't thank anybody for coming. She didn't say a word to them. And these are the people who braved the elements, whatever they were, heat, humidity, not allowed food and water in their bags, so I had to go big security check. You might say Hillary devotees. I mean, the people that you would be the most appreciative of. They're there to buy your book, for crying out loud. They're going to spend whatever you're charging them to buy your book, hopefully get a generic signature, not even a word of thanks, not an apology, not an explanation for why she was late, not an appreciation that people waited. There was no change in her behavior. You weren't allowed to stop and talk with her. They just ushered you through. It was like an assembly line. She signed the books generically. There was one funny thing that happened. A woman, female journalist, young journalist got in, started asking Hillary about Benghazi. Started asking Hillary about her 33,000 emails. What happened to your 30? She cackled and laughed, and security ushered the woman off, who then ran into Huma. Hey, Huma, why in the world did you stay married to a guy who was sending pictures of you to teenagers? And security came in and ran her off. And I hope that happens at everyone. I hope somebody pounds her with these questions at every one of these events that she does. Anyway, let's take a brief time out. We will continue as things that I promise continue to pile up here. And I will commit to getting all of them done. Don't go away. Greetings. Welcome back. El Rushmo, your guiding light on the excellence in broadcasting. Yeah, Hillary Clinton was on The View today, and I'm looking to see if we have the soundbite. I'm not asking for the soundbite. I was just looking to see if we had it. Late arriving story. It happened this morning. And this is a glowing example. To me, just a human interest, just a humanitarian thinking. What do we know about the 2016 Democrat presidential primary? We know it is not arguable. We know that it was rigged. We know because of the hack, whoever did it, of the DNC computer network. We know that Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz worked to ensure that Bernie Sanders would not win the nomination, not just with the superdelegates, but the whole thing was rigged. Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz working with Hillary. This is undisputed. It's not talked about because, of course, the narrative is that the Russians cheated in the election to elect Trump, and that's out there. But the real election fraud that we know was on the Democrat side of the primaries. So Hillary is on The View today, and she is complaining about Bernie Sanders. And she's telling the babes on The View that she resents how Bernie didn't do enough to help her against Donald Trump. Bernie didn't campaign hard enough. She's sitting on her sizable Arkansas broadbeam butt and not going to Wisconsin and not going to Pennsylvania. And when she does venture out, she almost falls flat on her face getting into a van. She's having physical problems of some kind, so she's taking it easy. She's not engaging in retail politics at all. And she's on TV today blaming Bernie Sanders for not helping her. And then she said she was surprised by the increasingly personal attacks on her from Bernie Sanders. And then she brought up what she did for Obama in 2008. She wanted to tell everybody, I was the way you should be. I lost, but I was the bigger person, and I went out and I worked really hard for Barack Obama. Yeah, well, you know why? Obama agreed to pay off her campaign debt, or part of it. And that's one of the reasons why she had to take the Secretary of State job. Obama didn't want her outside the tent. Nobody trusts the Clintons, even in the Democrat Party. So he wanted her inside the tent and in a job she wasn't qualified for. Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, what are the qualifications? You know, Obama wanted to run that show. She's the figurehead. As party administration, she can't run around and rag on him. So it was strategic. But she's out there telling, I worked very hard for Barack Obama. Even after losing, I put the party first. As soon as I lost, I turned around. I endorsed him. I worked hard for him. I was arguing with my supporters at the Denver convention in 2008. about why they had to quit complaining that I didn't win and go out and support Obama. In her book, Hillary says that Bernie Sanders' attacks on her during the primary did the lasting damage. It's just one of the 16 to 18 different things and people that she is to this day blaming and writing it down. What does she expect Bernie Sanders to do after she rigged his defeat? After she rigged the price, he was wasting his time. He was wasting the money that people had donated. His supporters had no idea. They really thought he had a chance of winning. And if you paid attention to the media, it did appear he was winning every primary for a while. He'd win every primary, and Hillary'd get a majority of delegates. And crazy Bernie supporters said, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. And the party would say, well, it's the rules that both agreed to. It's all going to come down to superdelegates. And they got ticked off, and they're still ticked off. So here's Hillary Clinton. And believe me, you think this is contradictory, but not the way she looks at the world. She rigs the game so that he can't possibly win and then gets mad at him for not helping her, not doing enough work for her. You probably know people like Hillary Clinton. Whatever they do, they botch. And whatever they botch, they find somebody else to blame. The amazing thing to me is that she's writing all of this down, that it's going to be out there forever. I mean, I've never seen a politician engage in such childish, spoiled, rotten behavior as Hillary Clinton is engaging in here. She must be carrying around an amount of resentment that we have not contemplated before, and she has this need to get it all out there, and she's doing it. It's going to be around forever now. Didn't Spielberg direct Jurassic Park? Wasn't that one of his? You would think that the guy who directed Jurassic Park would have been able to do something with Hillary Clinton. We can make dinosaurs come to life and even make them kind of lovable and likable. I mean, admit it. Didn't you kind of like the velociraptors in the lab? And didn't you kind of want one for a pet? Wouldn't it? Should have been able to do something with Hillary to make her more likable or more exciting. And, you know, Bernie Sanders, people have forgotten this. He ended up campaigning for Hillary. Do you remember what his requirement was? A private jet. He's that kind of socialist. He demanded a private jet paid for by other people, and he said he would go out and campaign for it. It was too little too late, and it wouldn't mattered because Hillary wasn't. She just, outside of New York and California, Hillary Clinton just doesn't light them up. Let's get back to the phones. Jim in Knoxville, Tennessee. Great to have you, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Ditto's, Rush.
Thank you, sir.
I had the great pleasure of watching Hillary on the Today Show this morning. And during the show, Matt and Savannah asked her, Hillary, if you could pin down the one thing that really did you the most damage, what would it be? And she blamed Director Comey on the eve of the election coming out the way he did. I thought that was kind of interesting, Rush, because had she not deleted emails off her server, had a private government server illegally in her house, she never would have had Comey in her life. Yet she's blaming Comey for a problem that she created.
It's
great. The election.
James Comey kept her out of jail. James Comey made sure that there were no criminal charges against her. James Comey took over the Department of Justice when Loretta Lynch blew it by getting on the plane, the tarmac on the plane with Bill Clinton. Now, I know she's conveniently blaming Comey for doing his press conference on July 5th, and that's its own story, whether Comey was right or wrong in doing that. And it's convenient to blame Comey for this. But, of course, Jim here is exactly right. If Hillary Clinton hadn't done any of that, then there would have been nothing for Comey to talk about or for Comey to overlook. Now, we have some audio sound bites from Hillary Clinton on the Today Show today. Start here. Well, no, not 18. That's with Ezra Klein on Vox. Maybe it works. Let me look at it real quick. Okay, let's start with number 18. It's Ezra Klein on the Vox website. Vox is a millennial version of the Washington Post. They do journalism different. They subdivide the stories. They give you the first paragraph or two of the story. Then they say, why does this matter? Then another paragraph explaining to you, because you're an idiot, why it matters. And then after that, they do another subdivision. What does it mean? And then they tell you what it could possibly mean. It's the news beyond the news. It's explanatory journalism, they say. And Ezra Klein is formerly the Washington Post, and he's a wunderkind. I mean, he's considered the future of modern American journalism. So anyway, Hillary appears on their website. And Ezra Klein said, why didn't you do better with white women? This blew their minds. Remember the Billy Bush tape? Trump wasn't supposed to survive that. You know, I have to tell you, but there's something about that Billy Bush tape. Not the tape, the reaction to it. All of these liberal men, if you can call them that, if I've read this once, I've read it I don't know how many times. And do not worry, moms, I'm not going to utter the word that Trump did. But these liberal men acting like what Trump said was one of the greatest offenses, one of the most egregious, outrageous things anyone could ever say. These guys are out doing it or trying to every night. And they're acting like it's like foreign behavior that a guy would. It's mind-boggling to me. No, I'm not don't misunderstand me. I'm not defending any behavior. We're talking about what somebody said here. And these liberal men, these guys would not survive in an athletic locker room. I mean, they'd be offended first and foremost by what they saw. And then when they started hearing what's said in a professional locker room, if they're bothered by what Trump said to Billy Bush, they'd be shuddering in fear and looking for the door to get out. Just a side observation. So here's Ezra. And remember, after the Billy Bush, that's the Inside Hollywood, the tape where Trump was overheard talking about what he likes to do and can do because as a big-time celebrity, you can get away with anything. It was thought, see, this is another, the arrogance of the left. It was assumed that every woman in America would be repulsed. That every woman in America would be outraged. How dare he think of me as being one of those, and that's it. How dare. That's what they thought. Every woman, and that Trump wouldn't get a single meaningful female vote. And he went on to win white women. And they don't understand it. They still don't understand it. Remember the story we had 2 days ago? Glamour magazine. Admittedly, a women's magazine. There is a story about a bunch of anti-Trump women who end up hooking up with Trump men who voted for Trump, and they say the sex has never been better. And they're conflicted as they can be. They're confused. They like it, but it doesn't make any sense to them. I don't know what they think they're doing when they go have with Trump voting men, but whatever it is that they're expecting, it's not that they end up liking it, and they're terribly conflicted. There's a whole story about it. Glamour magazine. A bunch of us Trump-supporting men were very happy about that story. Anyway, they can't figure out why white women, any women, voted for Trump. And Ezra Klein, why didn't you do better with white women, Hillary? Why?
Absent Comey, I might have picked up 1 or 2 points among white women. It stopped my momentum, and it hurt me, particularly among women. And I have so much anecdotal evidence for this. And now researchers are starting to pull some of this together. All of a sudden the husband turns to the wife. I told you, she's going to be in jail. You don't want to waste your vote. The boyfriend turns to the girlfriend and says, she's going to get locked up. Don't you hear? She's going to get locked up. I mean, all of a sudden it becomes a very fraught kind of conflictual experience. And so instead of saying, I'm taking a chance, I'm going to vote, it didn't work.
What is she, conflictual? Conflictive. Anyway, if you recall, James Comey said he wasn't going to charge her. James Comey said no reasonable prosecutor would bring charges because while Mrs. Clinton may have broken every law on the book, she didn't intend to. Remember that? And because we can't find any intent, we can't bring charges. Of course, intent is not part of the law. He let her off the hook. Well, everybody in the world heard that, so why does she think people are out there worried about her going to jail, and that's why they can't vote for her? That's not why she lost white women. She didn't even answer the question. She didn't win white women. She never had them. These people live under so many misconceptions. They assume, okay, Obama, first African-American president, historic, and we'll double down and we'll get the first female president. And see, when you have the first African-American president, you can't criticize him. Because if you do, you're a racist. And it worked. The Republicans didn't say a word in criticism of Obama because they didn't want to call racist. So we got away with doing it. They thought they would replicate that with Hillary. Hillary, first female president, can't criticize her. Otherwise, you're an anti-women chauvinist pig. It was a way to shut down all criticism. They believe that having the first female president is the only thing that matters to other women. They really tell themselves this. So when women don't vote for the first legitimate female presidential candidate, they're confused, can't understand it. She never had the support of a majority of white women. I don't care what the poll said. She never had a majority. And if it was close, her campaign served to drive them away. Because she assumes that everybody thinks the way she does and has the same anger and resentment that she does. And most people don't want to live that way. Most people don't want to live lives of grievance. Most people don't want to get up every day and figure out who they got to be mad at, who they have to blame, who they have to make their lives miserable that day in order to get through the day themselves. That's not how most people want to live life. But it's the way Hillary thinks that most people are, because they buy into this notion that life in this country is very bad and it's not fun and it sucks. And that's why you need Democrats in power to help people get through the mire. And then they find out that none of their conceptions are actual reality. And so she doesn't know how to answer this. The correct answer is she never had a majority. I don't care what the polls said. She never had a majority of them. Trump did, and they'll never understand why. Just like people reading the Glamour magazine story. If all they see is the headline, women who didn't vote for Trump are having time of their life, whatever it is, with male Trump voters, sex never better, whatever the story said. Confusing as all get out until you get into it. And there's a big difference. Well, that's close enough to the line. If you had your choice, if you're a normal red-blooded American woman, you really had your choice. Do you want to hook up with some wuss? Or do you want to hook up with a man? All right, stand by. Audio soundbite number 27. Folks, I really am trying to get off of Hillary. The topic, the subject. And I kept getting stuff here. For example, just this. This is, let's see, where was she? This is from the company. During an interview with NPR. She's out there selling this book like crazy. And it's not going to do gang up. You watch. Bang up. Hillary Clinton suggests women didn't vote for her because of the men in their lives. So this is the same question that what's his face? Ezra Klein asked her at Vox. At NPR, they asked the same thing. She was asked about the good number of young women who didn't vote for her. And Hillary Clinton suggests that women didn't vote for her because the men in their lives didn't want them to. She claims that young women did not find gender a motivating force. Good. It ought not matter. It ought not matter what the gender of somebody who wants to be president is, unless they don't know. Then it should matter. I mean, if they don't know which bathroom to use, you got a problem. But they probably wouldn't get nominated. But it shouldn't matter at all. But look at what does matter to her. Well, young women did not find gender a motivating force. I think it's much more difficult to unpack all of this. And with respect specifically to young women, I do think that for a lot of young women, gender is just not the motivating force that maybe it will be in the future. Then she cites a conversation with Sheryl Sandberg, CEO, COO, something at Facebook, wrote the book Lean In, talked about her research that indicates the more successful a woman is, the less likable she appears. She also said opportunity to push the concept that women may not have voted for Clinton because the men in their lives didn't want them to. Now, folks, you stop and think of that. You may think, okay, but that really is a profound excuse. A leftist woman saying that leftist women are only allowed to have opinions shaped by the men in their lives. That is not a testament to feminism. We're talking about why didn't more liberal Democrat women vote for Hillary, and she says because the men in their lives didn't want them to. What does the men in their lives matter? Isn't that what feminism is? You're not supposed to care what the man says. You're not supposed to care what the man wants. You're supposed to be independent from all that. What an indictment of feminism that answer is. But once again, she's just throwing things up against the wall and hoping they stick, because that's just more blame spreading and shaming and excusing anything but the truth, which is, I guess, they just didn't find me excited. I guess they didn't like my policies because nobody knew what they were. She couldn't tell you the reason she was running outside of her turn, her entitlement. Grab 27. This is the actual soundbite of her on The View today, blaming crazy Bernie for not helping her. The question comes from Sonny Hostin. You know, you get a lot of criticism. People say, well, she won't take responsibility for the loss. I've read your book. You clearly took responsibility for the loss. Hostin sucking up here. You've always taken responsibility, but you claim others share responsibility for your loss as well. You talk about Bernie Sanders, you say he shares responsibility. What do you mean?
You know, by March or April, I had an insurmountable lead. I ended up winning by 4 million votes. I know what it's like to lose because I lost in 2008 to President Obama.
Right.
As soon as I lost, I turned around, I endorsed him. I worked hard for him. I was arguing with my supporters at the Denver convention in 2008 about why they had to quit complaining that I didn't win and get out and support Barack Obama. And I didn't get that respect.
This is just embarrassing. And, of course, that brain-dead crowd's in there applauding. You know, Sonny Hostin's question, I'm sure they worked that out before the show started. Hillary said, here's what I want you to ask me. This is the way I want you to ask it. Sonny Hostin, fine. I don't think they're going to surprise Hillary with a question on this show. So she's got this answer ready to go. She wants to say this, is my point. She thinks this is a big deal. Got to get this point out. How hard she worked for Obama. Don't tell anybody that Obama had agreed to pay off her campaign debt. Don't tell anybody that Obama was wanting to keep her close and had offered her a place in the regime. And so now she's turning around, trashing crazy Bernie. And, of course, don't mention the fact that the reason you got 4 million votes is that they rigged the election in your favor at the DNC. Here's a real question for you. Was Hillary ever really ahead at any time? And there may have been a period of time, but Trump ended up winning. And, of course, in the Electoral College, the vote there was not close. Now, we know that all of the big data analysts, the guys that were saying Hillary had a 91.2% chance of winning this day and a 78.8% chance the next day and the next week, they were not even close. And the standard polling, Gallup, NBC, Wall Street, they were not even close. The real question was Hillary ever really leading? She thought she was. She thought she was headed for a landslide. And, of course, she never was. I mean, they ended up believing it. Anyway, 1 hour left. Hang on. No, I don't want to mention it, because if I mention it, it's only going to get bigger, and it doesn't deserve to be amplified. But it's still so full of BS, it's incredible. I shouldn't say this. It's just teasing you people. What am I talking about? And I'm not going to tell you what I'm talking about. Oh, well, I might. What is it? It's on the Drudge Report now? Okay. Well, here it is. The link on the Drudge Report is liberals turn to podcasts for salvation. But I have noticed, by the way, welcome back, folks. Rush Limbaugh, Cutting Edge Societal Evolution, Meeting and Surpassing All Audience Expectations, blah, 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 blah. So there's a link there. Liberals turn to podcasts for salvation. Now, I happen to know this because you have to know the liberals to read, and you have to know I know them. I study them. And so they make casual references to podcasts that they love. So I have picked up on the fact that liberals, unable to compete in radio, are now turning into podcasts. And so there's a story at a website called The Week, W-E-E-K. So I clicked. I've got to travel a distance here to do it here, folks. Just a second. The Ditto Cam follows me, but you click on the link here, and it comes up with the headline, how a new generation of left-wing podcasters are dethroning Rush Limbaugh and right-wing talk radio. There isn't any dethroning going on, and the story actually admits this at the end of it. They say they're not even close, but they've got a good start, and whoever wrote the story gets so many facts wrong. Says the audience here's 12 million. It's 26 now, folks. 26 million. The distance, we don't even see them in the rearview mirror. But I don't begrudge them for trying. They have failed at every attempt they've made. This guy goes on to, he's just so ticked off because Limbaugh, he's just nothing but a broadcaster. He's never had any experience in policy. He's never worked in government. He doesn't know anything. He just makes people mad. And then they cite researchers who have found out that the audience trusts Limbaugh. And when Limbaugh says something, they believe it. And that's not good because Limbaugh doesn't know what he's talking about because Limbaugh has never written policy. Limbaugh has never been involved in the business of politics and policy. So it's filled with deep, deep resentment, which is comical to read. And it points out that the conservatives who have experience in government and policy the people in talk radio who are prominent are not experts and have no experience in it. And then he cites all these various podcasts that are springing up out there that may have, and believe, if a podcast has an audience of 1.8 million, he points out that's bigger than Anderson Cooper's audience. He's trying to tell us that podcasters have a bigger audience than CNN, which may be true, by the way. I don't know about 1.8 million. Anyway, it's the last thing I expected to see. I mean, Drudge doesn't put my name in the link. So liberals turning to podcasts, I knew it because I read them. And they talk about their podcast that they like. So I know that it's a coming. We've been podcasting this program before they knew what it was. There are podcasts of this program each and every day, and we don't add those numbers to our overall official ratings reports, although we know what the numbers are. But we don't add them because we don't have to. But they're scrimping and scrounging for everything they can get out there. But the funny part of this is the deep resentment that I have built this empire, and I don't know what I'm doing. And I don't know what I'm talking. And I'm not worthy. I'm not qualified. I shouldn't have the right to be telling you what I tell you, because I don't know anything. It's just 30 years, and it's just every criticism just continues to recycle. And this, of course, is a boomer of a surprise because the link doesn't even suggest this. I had no idea what I was. Let me get that off of here. I don't want this to distract those of you watching on the Ditto Cam. Now, I've been trying to get back to this Politico story since the first hour, and it's a perfect time to do it now since we have added all of the Hillary news and revelations today. Three things. First, I just saw that Trump is hosting Chuck and Nancy tonight for dinner in the White House. And Chuck and Nancy are coming up to talk tax reform. Not Mitch and Paul, but Chuck and Nancy. Remember the Rasmussen Report survey. Here are my formerly nicotine-stained fingers. Most Republican voters welcome Trump's outreach to congressional Democrats. It's Rasmussen. I can see this in a sense. We talked about it earlier, but I just reminding you of it. Now, the Politico story. Teflon Don confounds Democrats. Democrats have attacked the president every which way, but polling and focus groups show that none of it is working. None of it. Trump should have been. There is, I don't think, a modern American president, Nixon maybe, during the confined period of Watergate. Outside of that, I don't think there is a president, certainly in our lifetimes. I mean, it was brutal back in the days of the Civil War and journalism. But I don't think there's a president in our lifetimes who has been the subject of a never-ending 24/7 assault since the day he won his party's nomination, then the election. I don't think anybody has had to go through what Trump has gone through. Just the lies, the distortions, the rumors, the leaks, the untruths, the allegations that his election was illegitimate because of collaboration, collusion with the Russians, Vladimir Putin. I mean, it's never ended. And they go with something until it dies, and they pick something else up, and they go back to the Russians and get distracted. Special prosecutor, they've invested they've shot everything they have. And he's still sitting there with an approval number of 45 to 48%. They were able to knock George Bush's numbers down into the 30s with 4 consecutive years of pounding Bush on the Gulf or on the Iraq War. So what's the difference? Why are they not able? Why is all of this bouncing off Trump? Why is it not working? Well, there's an answer, I think. But first, some of the details in the story. It's written by Edward Isaac Dovere. Or Dovere. Democrats tried attacking Trump as unfit. They made the case he's ineffective, pointing to his failure to sign a single major piece of legislation, even 8 months into the gig. They've argued he's using the presidency to make himself rich, that his campaign was in cahoots with Russia, and none of it's working. Data from a range of focus groups and internal polling data in swing states paint a difficult picture for the Democrat Party heading into the 2018 midterms and the 2020 presidential race. But it's important. The Democrats, until they read this, actually, in their private moments, cloakrooms where they talk to each other, they know it isn't working. And I guarantee you they're befuddled and they're confused and they don't understand. That's why they're piling on. They think, maybe we're not hitting them hard enough, and they ratchet it up. But they, in their less than lucid moments, they really, I think some of them really believe they're skating now to 2018. I think they believe that they have ruined Trump and they've destroyed Trump and his ability to campaign, raise money for other people, other Republicans. They have the ability to lie to themselves and pat themselves on the back. But the truth of the matter is that none of this, and this is their playbook, they have not gone after Trump on policy. They've not tried to say that their policies are better because they don't have any that they want to publicize. It's been purely personal. They've done nothing but try to destroy Trump, the man, the human being, the presidency and his career, and his life's work, and his family. I mean, they have gone after everybody. His wife, even his 13-year-old son. Data from a range of focus groups and internal polls paints a difficult picture for the Democrats in 2018, suggests that Democrats are naive if they believe that Trump's low approval numbers mean a landslide for them is coming. The Democrats are defending 10 Senate seats in states that Trump won. they need to flip 24 seats in the House to take control there. The research conducted by private firms for Democrat campaign arms is rarely made public, but it was described to Politico in interviews with a dozen top operatives who have analyzed the results coming in. So they won't show the data to Politico, but they'll tell them what's in it, and they've done so. Anson Kay, a strategist at the media firm GMMB, worked on Obama and Clinton campaigns, said if that's the attitude that's driving the Democrat Party, we're gonna drive right into the ocean. Meaning, if they think they're headed for a landslide win, they are totally mistaken. Worse news: many of the ideas that party leaders have latched onto in an attempt to appeal to their lost voters, free college tuition, raising the minimum wage to $15, even Medicaid for all three of those have tested poorly outside the Democrat base. The people in these polls and focus groups tend to see those proposals as empty promises at best, meaning they don't believe college is ever going to really be free, and they don't believe that Medicare is actually going to be for everybody, and they don't believe. It's not that they don't want those things. It's that they don't believe the Democrats are going to deliver. It's Republican voters don't think their party is going to deliver either. Pollsters are shocked by how many voters describe themselves as exhausted by the constant chaos surrounding Trump. Now remember, these are Democrat polls, Democrat analysts telling Politico what they're finding. And they are finding that none of their attacks have worked. And in addition to that, they're finding the issues that they're trying to counter Trump with: free college, free tuition, Medicare for all of it. It's not working. And they're tired of what the Democrats are doing. They're tired of the daily chaos. They're not energized by it. Now, you might say, but Rush, how do you explain Antifa, Black Lives Matter? That's not who we're talking about here. Those people are irritating everybody. That's the dirty little secret here. The military wing of the Democrat Party, this army of ne'er-do-well rioters, they're ticking off everybody and the never-ending allegations on Trump because there isn't any truth to them. It's been over a year that they have been alleging the Russians rigged the election, and nobody has been able to produce any evidence. People are worn out. And the pollsters are shocked. They are shocked. They find their strong support for a Congress that provides a check on Trump instead of voting for his agenda most of the time. But he's still viewed as an outsider shaking up the system, which people in various surveys say they like, and which Democrats don't stack up well against. Now, even though they don't like the chaos surrounding Trump, I want to read this again. The pollsters have found that there is strong support for a Congress that provides a check on Trump instead of voting for his agenda most of the time. So that's a little conflicting. If these people like the fact that Democrats are putting the brakes on Trump, then why do they dislike the chaos? Because the chaos is part of it. So that's something you have to weed through into even deeper data that would require psychological analysis to figure that out. But even beyond that, these same people like Trump because he's an outsider shaking up the system. Believe me, there is a general, malaise, that's stronger than malaise, about Washington per se. Because it is. It's a mess. Nothing seems organized. Nothing seems focused. And nothing that Washington says they're going to fix gets better. Areas of the country are improving. Things are doing well, but not because of what Washington is doing, which is, by the way, the real key is things do get better when Washington isn't involved. In focus groups, most participants say they're still impressed with Trump's business background. They tend to give him credit for improving the economy. That shocks them. That shocks the Democrats. It shocks these pollsters. Now, the poll says the window's closing. Voters are still inclined to give Trump a chance to succeed. They don't want him thrown out of office. They don't want any of that. But they do believe that his business background is valuable and that the economic upturn is his credit. And more than that, no single Democrat attack on Trump is sticking. Not Russia, not collusion, not Trump enriching himself. None of it. None of these, not one of them is sticking, meaning not one of them is doing any damage. Many of the proposals Democrats are pushing fall flat in focus groups and polling. The call for free college tuition causes resentment at ivory tower elitism. People do not believe that free is ever going to happen. They think free is a lie. They think they're going to pay for it if it's free. They just don't believe it. And when you throw free guaranteed income in, that really doesn't poll well. So why? Why is none of this stuff sticking? When it apparently did to George W. Bush, and it does stick to other Republicans. Why is it not sticking to Trump, do you think? Okay, I'm going to get to the answer to the question in the next half hour while you ponder and consider why is this stuff not sticking to Trump? Because there are reasons why the Democrat assaults. I mean, it appears they're working if all you do is watch the drive-by media, but research polling data clearly it's not affecting Trump's numbers with the public. The Republicans are scared to death of it, and it's affecting them, but it really isn't working. So we'll get to that in the next half hour. In the meantime, Ron in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania, great to have you. I'm glad you waited, sir. How are you doing?
Great. Yep, Rush, I voted for Donald not because he's a Republican, my friend, because I need something done. I'm sick of since I was 18, Rush, the Republicans have let me down. Nobody. I'm Ron the Bagman. I sell plastic bags. Your money's not Democrat. Your money's not Republican. It's green. Pay the bills. Fix something. Do something. I pay taxes for what? You tell me, Rush.
No, I get you, but let me ask you. You voted for Trump. How do you think he's doing? Are you worried? You happy?
I'm happy with him.
You're happy with it?
I'm thrilled with him. A bunch of little spoiled brats in the sandbox fighting over Tonka toys.
Okay, let me ask you a little test question. Does it bother you? Said you're not a Republican. I understand. Does it bother you that Trump is working with Chuck and Nancy on things like the debt limit and national spending?
Nope, I'm thrilled. In fact, I should be going to dinner with him to explain the real world. I'm so happy he's doing it just to irk the Republicans. The look on their faces, on Mitch's, in Ryan's face, because they didn't get to. I bet you they're pouting like spoiled little babies right now. They're all pissed.
I think you might be close.
If I'm not, I'd be amazed.
Well, I know they're irritated, but the Republicans being mad at Trump is almost the same as Hillary being mad at crazy Bernie. Trump has every reason in the world to be mad. He ran as a Republican. They won and expanded their control of the House because of him. And right after the election, I remember Speaker Ryan and others effusively praising Trump. Reince Priebus came on this show, said, I know, we've got no more excuses. And they were all out bowing down. Thank you, Trump. We're here because of Donald Trump. And it was just words. If you're Trump and you're not an ideologue and you just want to get things done and the guys supposedly on your side are not helping you, you can't help but notice. This caller's reaction, though, is fascinating in another way. Why have all of these attacks, and this is the Politico saying so, it isn't me, and you're free to disagree with the Politico. I mean, some of you may disagree, thinking, it is hurting Trump, it's ticking me off, it makes me mad, it's causing other people to hate Trump who otherwise wouldn't. I understand that. But it's not showing up in the official polling data conducted by Trump's enemies. And in this case, I don't think they're going to lie to themselves. They want to know if their stuff's working or not, and it isn't. So why isn't it? And why did it work on Trump? May I inject myself into this to help you out in answering this? You know, I don't ever want to make the program about me, but sometimes it's unavoidable because I'm so famous. And like this stuff on the Drudge Report today, these supposed podcasters now dethroning me. Nobody's dethroning me. They're not even close. It's just wishful thinking. But they've tried. See, this is the point. 30 years, and you lifers know every attempt they have made to damage me, to harm me, to trash me, to destroy the program. You know every effort. And you also know it hasn't worked. Why? Well, let's talk about Trump. There's one thing Trump does that no other politician has ever done that serves the purpose of thwarting every day these allegations, accusations, these literal attempts, I should say these attempts to literally destroy Trump, and that is Twitter. As much as I shrink away from social media, because I think it's a sewer, and I think it's where human debris congregate, the fact of the matter is, it's not all that. And Donald Trump has the ability every day, and uses it, to not only fight back and properly characterize the people attacking him, he also daily, multiple times a day, tweets what his agenda is and what he's trying to do and what he has done. He is doing the job an otherwise responsible media would be doing, but they aren't. He is recording his successes. He's telling about the meetings he's having, people he's talking to, the progress he's making on things. He calls out the people that are standing in his way. He explains why he's not doing this or is doing that. But that's not it alone. None of that would work. None of that would matter if there weren't something else. And that something else is what we were talking about earlier. He has a connection. All of this media attack on Trump is designed at one group, Trump supporters. They know that if they can cause you Trump supporters to abandon him, then Trump is finished. And so that's what all of these efforts have been aimed at, is you who support Trump. Just like the efforts to whatever they've been trying to do is aimed at you. They would love to have you turn this show off. They'd love to be able to prove that you're doing it. But in 30 years, you haven't, and they can't. And so the question is, why? Well, in Trump's case, he has this connection. He has trust. He has believability. He has a bond with people that he built. Now, many people are famous, and many people are celebrities, but many of them are so not because of anything they've done to quote-unquote earn it. They have just been proclaimed. They're treated. They're written about, covered as celebrities, meaning the media makes them. Well, and when the media makes you, the media can destroy you. And this is why so many in the entertainment community salivate and genuflect and do everything they can to butter up the entertainment media, because if they turn on you, they don't have a microphone to go to. They can tweet, but nobody cares because they haven't built up a personal connection with their audience. Very few Hollywood stars have this connection. Now, their connection is of a different kind. The way to illustrate it, if people who voted for Trump saw Trump, let's say you're in an airline or an airport and you're at baggage claim. You've just arrived, and Trump is at baggage claim. He just arrived. You see Trump, you're a Trump supporter, you would think nothing of walking up and talking to him. And he would gladly welcome you to come up and talk to him. And you'd tell him, and you would think of him as your friend. You know him. And anything you talk to him about, you know he's going to understand. The context is there. And he's going to be polite, and he's going to thank you, and you're going to have a conversation. Other people are famous celebrities, but you would never approach them. You'll look at them, You'll nod, you'll touch and jab people. Look over there. I've seen this. There's no connection. There's the fame and there's the celebrity and there's the recognition factor, but there isn't the connection. And if the media has nothing to do with building that connection, then the media can't destroy it. And I don't know if these guys in this Politico story, these pollsters know this. I don't know if they are aware that of this particular element. I don't think they are. I think they really believed, and maybe still do, that one of these attacks is going to work. That one of these days they're going to be able to destroy Trump, in your mind. Now, our last caller said something I think is a very crucial thing the Republican Party had better start taking seriously. I wasn't able to hear everything the guy said. I gathered he was a Republican, but he's an angry Republican. He voted for Trump, and he doesn't care that Trump is working with the Democrats. The more, the better. Trump working with Chuck and Nancy on the debts, bring it on. Trump working with Chuck and Nancy on, bring it on. Why? You hear what he said? He is so angry at the Republicans, he wants them to just have it stuck to him. Whatever it takes. He is so angry at them that if it takes Trump working with Democrats to move his agenda, he'll applaud it. That, in a political world, that is serious stuff. And Selena Zito had a column we quoted earlier in the week. You know, she's gone out into these previously blue states, and she's talked to and she's kept relationships with all these former Democrat blue state voters who voted for Trump. And she goes out periodically, revisits them, and takes their temperature. And what she has found is that people are voting Republican not because they like the Republicans. They dislike the Democrats even more. But there isn't a lot of affection for either party right now. And so the clear beneficiary of that is Donald Trump. And where his voters are concerned, whatever he has to do to succeed, whatever he has to do, if he has to have dinner with Chuck and Nancy to get the wall built, fine and dandy, go for it. If he has to have dinner with Chuck and Nancy to get this thing, fine and dandy. They are so desirous of what they consider to be the Washington establishment getting the message. They don't think electing Trump was enough to send the message. I think they're sitting out there thinking the Republicans still don't get it. They think Trump's temporary. They think they're going to be able to get rid of Trump. When they get rid of Trump, we'll get back to normal. And I think they think the Republicans don't realize how serious the situation is. That's what I heard in the last caller. And these Democrats and all their polls and their inability to do any damage to Trump whatsoever. And then the Rasmussen story with all these Republicans saying, I don't care if Trump goes out and works with Chuck and Nancy. If he has to work with Democrats, because they believe in Trump's agenda. That's why he was elected. He made no secrets about what it was, and they want it to happen. Now, you might be saying, but Rush, doesn't Trump realize that Chuck and Nancy don't want a wall? That's not what they're thinking. They think Trump is going to get the wall. They have no doubt Trump's going to get the wall, and that if he has to work with Chuck and Nancy to get it, whatever, he's going to get it. But if the Republicans are seen as the obstacle to Trump's agenda, they're going to bear the brunt of the wrath. And that is what's happening. No, I didn't get to the ESPN babe ripping into Trump. What's new about that? What is new about an African-American sports person ripping Trump? Or ripping him out? Jamel Hill. And it's somebody else. Somebody else has said that, what was it? Kaepernick supports ESPN host who called Trump a white supremacist. This guy really wants a job in the NFL, doesn't he? This Jamel Hill comes out, and ESPN, we've dealt with it privately. Everything's cool, which means they didn't do anything. And then Kaepernick comes out and says he agrees with her, supports Jamel Hill, who called Trump a white supremacist. It's old and tired. And frankly, I'm tired of being mad at stuff like that. So I focused on other stuff. And tomorrow, be right back.